So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Three Principles Ireland monthly Zoom gathering. And this evening, we have the great honour of having Dr. Mark Howard here in our presence. I'm going to read a tiny bit about Dr. Mark, not very much. I'm going to hand it over to him and let him do his own introductions. So, Dr. Mark is the founder of the Three Principles Institute in California. He's a licensed psychologist and is recognised as one of the pioneers who first brought the three principles into the field of psychology. Since 1982, Dr. Mark has been teaching clients, families, business professionals, mental health practitioners, and coaches about the three principles. In 2008, he was awarded the Outstanding Career Service Award by a psychologist from the Santa Clara Psychological Association for all the work he has done in bringing the principles to the Santa Clara County. And now Dr. Mark devotes his life to mentoring anyone who wants to share the principles, supporting them to share from a sense of service with certainty, love, and understanding. And he's dedicated his life to bringing peace, well-being, and happiness to humankind. And we have the great honour and privilege of him joining us here at Three Principles Ireland tonight. So I will hand it over to you, Dr. Mark.
Oh, thank you, Angelina. And I'm just really happy to be with all of you, with the 3P Ireland community. I've heard a lot about you, and am really happy to have a chance to share an understanding with you today. So, I have something that I want to share with all of you, and then I like to keep it interactive. Check in to see if you have any questions or anything you'd like to share about your understanding of the principles or about what I'm sharing today. So just happy to be here. I wanted to share with you some words of Sydney Banks that was profound for me to hear. And I walk about 5 days a week for my exercise, and I listen to recordings I have of Sydney Banks. And this has now been about 3 months ago, but it's still so alive for me that I wanted to just start there with all of you. But he said something that really hit me profoundly. He was talking about the principles, and all of a sudden he said, the most unnatural state of a human being is to be unhappy. And it really hit me that it woke me up in that we're not here to be unhappy. We're not meant or built really to be unhappy. It was the sense of, we're given life. This was kind of the sense that came to me. We're given life and this planet to live in, and we weren't meant to be unhappy. Isn't that something? Isn't that profound? So then how were we meant to live, And he said that too, we're meant to live happy. That's our natural state. And as I've been sharing through the years, again, what's in the way of us just living in our natural state? What's natural for us? Happiness. Well, the only thing in the way of that is how we're using this beautiful gift we're given of thought, this power of thought. Lots of times we use it to think about ourselves, to think about how we're doing and making comparisons and making judgments and getting caught up in self-evaluation and shoulds and ought tos. But really, the main reason we're not always in the state of happiness is because our thinking creates a reality we're living in that takes us away from happiness, that really creates unhappiness. Now, there's nothing wrong there. I mean, there's nothing to get judgmental about because one of the other things I learned from Sid is no one can escape coming into life and growing up, and no one can escape developing habits of thought. You know, we're taught ways to think about ourselves. You know, no human being comes into life with envy or anger or regret. We have to learn to think about ourselves in life that way. And recently, I've been focusing a lot on self esteem, and it's the same thing. Self esteem is another way of talking about these beautiful feelings we're meant to live in. Happiness is just a word to use to describe these beautiful feelings we're meant to live in. Um, and as I've talked with people and groups about self esteem, I talked about what I remembered as an innocent way I learned to compare myself to other people. And I go back to the first grade. That's the earliest I can remember of that happening. But really, I think it is the first time that I started to really think about myself in relationship to how other people were doing. And what happened is uh, the teacher put on a bulletin board all of our names, and we had different colored pins for each one of us. And then she had like the progress we were making on our subjects, on a test, handing in reading assignments, whatever, huh? And eventually, as we went through the first month or so, there were people who were ahead of me and people who were behind me. And all of a sudden, I started to think about how well I was doing. I really can see that it wasn't until that kind of demonstration through the year of being in the first grade. It wasn't until that I really took to heart how I was doing. And I can remember thinking about some of my friends ahead of me and thinking about it in a way that I didn't feel good about myself. Anyhow, I'm fine now. I, I'm doing well now. 10 years of psychoanalysis has really helped me get okay about that. No, I'm just kidding about that. But I'm just using the story to kind of just see that it's just typical that we will develop habits of thinking that move us away from happiness. It's bound to happen. And Sid even shared that that's what happens, We do get affected by how we go through childhood. But he said the way to transcend that is by uh, realizing the nature of thought, the power of thought. See, when you begin to realize that uh, you're doubting yourself, you're thinking that you should have been better than you were 2 years ago in that situation. You're feeling less worthy. When you realize that's just a way you've learned to think about yourself, that's where the power comes in for you to think any way you want to think. You get the freedom from habitual thinking. See, it's not like you've got to practice anything. Um, you just realize that power of thought to uh, uh, allow you to manifest thinking that then is brought to life through consciousness. And that's all you need to realize to see that to be true. And when you see that to be true, it will come to you at some point. Uh, it will occur to you that the way you're thinking now is what's creating for you your bother or your upset or your judgments, you see. And that's all you need. And it's not to never, like for me, never do comparisons. That's not what we are as the principles. But what it is to that you can realize, oh no, there I go again. I'm just caught up in my habits of thinking. That realization, remembering once again where your experience comes from, is what really allows us to uh, move away from it, get freedom from those habits of thought. The minute we do, what happens? We get happy. The minute we stop thinking about ourselves, for example, or engaging our habitual thinking that moves us into distress or worry or concern, the minute we drop that, truly uh, move away from it, we're happy. We're in our beautiful feelings. And so it is profound, isn't it, to begin to realize you were really here to be happy, to find that. That's what Sid has a lot of profound statements. If you read his books and listened to his videos, but the other one that speaks to what we're talking about today is that the reason. Let's see. I'm trying to think about it. Uh, he says the meaning of life. That's what he says. The meaning of life is to go find your true self, and your true self is happiness, love, and understanding, peace of mind. You see, all of that beautiful state of consciousness. So, so I wanted to share some of that with you today. Uh, no matter what you're thinking, happiness is always flowing within you. It's always there. Love and understanding is always there. As Elsie Spittle and the late Chip Chipman would say, your true nature is always there. Uh, it's just it's just how you're using your thinking that's keeping you from realizing that. But it's always flowing within you. When I went to university for my graduate school, I was in a university that was in the Midwest of Canada in North America. And it's a very cold area of the world uh, during the winter. This was the province of Manitoba, Canada. And through the middle of our university, the campus, It flowed, this river, the Red River, flowed through the center of campus all the way through. And in the winter, it would freeze. And it would be so solid that people would cross country ski if they lived close by the river into the campus to attend their classes or even teach their classes. Now, here's the thing, the reason I'm sharing this with you as it's a visual aid. Um, and if you didn't know anything about science, let's say, or nature, when you looked at that frozen river, you would not believe that there really is a river flowing underneath that. Because to you, it looks solid. You see, that's what it is right now. How can there be a flowing river under that? I don't see that. But there is a river flowing underneath that block of ice, you see. And that's the same for us. There's always that happiness flowing through us. What gets in the way is the block of ice of thought. How we use this beautiful gift we're given to think in ways that scare us or get us into being angry or bothered by people. All these different ways, we can think that create a distress in us or a sense of dissatisfaction. But that's it. That's all that's in the way. Nothing else. Nothing else about you in life is in the way of your happiness. Now that's profound as well. I didn't know that. And it was really until I really found the Sydney Banks, because when I first sat in a seminar that he was teaching, there weren't the principles yet. So, but until then, until I sat there listening to him, I thought happiness came from getting my life right, getting the people in my life right. Back to graduate school, I always thought, well, I'll finally feel less stress. I'll be happy the minute I get my PhD, you see. The minute I get that, I'll be happy. Well, that wasn't the case. I mean, it felt good. I remember when um, I finished my defense of a dissertation that you need to present for the degree, and I left the room, and the committee voted, and they came out and said, "Congratulations, Dr. Howard." Now, I was elated. Yeah. I walk away and I said, "But wait a minute, where's that happiness?" What happened? This is great. This is wonderful. I'm not denying that I wasn't pleased and elated by all the years of work coming to this and achieving what I wanted to achieve. But that happiness wasn't in that. This deep sense of happiness came when I heard for the first time from Sydney Banks. What I heard was all those feelings I'm caught up in are made up. They're just being created by thought. And that gave me the freedom to hope that I could be happy, truly happy. Now, it took time of understanding and listening to Sid and trying to share this with people and the evolution of my understanding to really see that once I recognize I'm caught in my habits of thought, I can just let them go and drop into happiness. I also realized I could live there. I could really begin to live more happy. I could live in more love and understanding. Again, not in a strategy way, but just in the knowing the truth of that. And the one thing where I mentioned earlier, the one thing that is just beautiful about us being the principal is that you just have to have a glimmer of where your experience comes from. And you go about your day, and that glimmer that you touched, what you woke up, will come back to you. It will be given to you as a gift, honestly. That's the way I kind of see it. It's like you just remember, oh my God, my thinking's going south. Okay, settle down, quiet down. It's like my friend and colleague, Keith Blevins, talks to people about awakening once again that your thinking's off. And he says to people, you see this indentation in my forehead? It's from going, oh no, there I go again. But that, oh no, there I go again, wasn't a strategy. It wasn't that he saw the index card on his refrigerator. Remember, it's just your thought. It came from um, this essence of us, this intelligence of us, this wisdom. It was given again a reminder of what we had realized, that insight we have had, that, oh no, I'm thinking about myself again. And then you get freedom, quiet down, relax, and in come the beautiful feelings. So I could always talk more, but I want to just stop here as I've taken some time to share with you um, this profound um, statement of Sid's that I still talk about. As you can see, I'm still talking about it here with you. But I really want to hear from you. Hear if there's any questions you have or anything you'd like to share about what have been presenting to you, or anything that's been on your mind about the principles, or really anything around that. And I'd love to hear from you. Anybody want to ask something or share something? Well, you're making me earn my money today.
Hello, Mark. I'll talk
Oh,
to you.
hi.
Yeah.
Who is this?
Julie. Julie here.
Oh, hi, Julie. Oh, there you are. Hi, Julie.
Yeah. Well, nobody was talking, so I said I'd come in.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed your short talk, I must say. And I needed it this evening. You kept it short and you kept it simple. And that's what I like, because when it gets too complicated, it just goes over my head. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it and I needed it. The last week has been very stressful, and I've been totally and completely caught up in my thinking. Absolutely. And I just couldn't get away from it. It was like a swarm of bees going around in my head.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there was a situation like where I'm kind of course, ego plays a big part as well. Will I, won't I? Making a decision like, and it's not really that important of a decision. It's me making a huge thing out of it. Okay, we'll go back like now then to it's our thinking that gets in the way of everything. And that's fine, that's okay. And sometimes you see that and sometimes you don't. But say for instance, like you're in a dilemma and you don't know which choice to make. Yeah. You don't know which choice to make. Like, your brain is telling you 1 minute, yeah, this is the road I'm going. And then 2 hours later, no. No, that's not the right thing. So you're trying to work it out with
Yeah.
your intellect. So could you talk a little bit on that? Like how do you get out of your head to kind of let wisdom speak? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh man, that's a great question. And, it's just wonderful that you already uh, have an understanding that will be very, very helpful to you. That you could see that the week was just because you had bees flying around in your mind. That's already a shift. You know,
Right.
that's the first thing that uh, really helped me a great deal in listening to Sydney Banks is that it brought me to look within, but not in a judgmental way, but to look within to the fact I was thinking. It was me and the way I was thinking. So it doesn't matter that you had a week visiting your thinking, that you know it was your thinking. That's the power. That's the key. That's the saving grace of this understanding. And it doesn't matter that it lasted a week. It doesn't matter because you're looking in the right direction. You're looking with an understanding that you just got caught up in thinking and it was buzzing all week. So I want you to appreciate you already have an understanding and a shift that will continue to evolve to help you with the bees that are buzzing around you. So that's the
Right.
first thing to see. That's the first thing. When you shared uh, that question, people like to go at the dilemma and then look at intellect and wisdom. And I want to share with you a story that's really about the feeling and remembering the feeling. Um, as I was, years in sharing this understanding in the psychiatry department I was a part of in this medical center, I wanted to share it more with humanity. And I talked to my wife a lot about that dream of just sharing it beyond a medical center to humanity. It's an understanding for humanity. I had this feeling that you might call a dream, your dream for what you'd like to offer. Um, so this day I get a call from Jamie Smart, who's this wonderful coach, mentor person in the UK, United Kingdom, in London, and he's calling me saying that he's got this group of people that he wants to move to from the traditional way of coaching that he's been training them to the principles, and he'd like me to come over and do a year's program. Come over to the UK. Well, I've never really traveled internationally. I didn't have a program, and I got really caught up in my thinking. It's what my dream was, it's what I wanted to do. But when he started to describe it to me, it wasn't meaning that I would live over there for a year, but I would do some trips over there. I started to get into thinking about it. When we ended the call, I now had a dilemma. You see, I had a dilemma. My dream versus my fear. My dream versus, I didn't know at that moment it was my fear, but my dream versus all these thoughts about how going in that direction may not be the thing to do. Do people really, what would the community say if I went and worked with Jamie Smart? Here's things like this, okay? I leave my office, which is in my house, and my wife is putting dried towels that, folded and she dried into the closet right by my office. I leave my office and she says, "What's up? You look a little troubled here." And I said, well, I can't figure what's the right way to go. I just got a call from this guy, Jamie Smart, and he asked me to come over and share the principles with his group and wants me to train them into coaching with the principles. And I started to think, oh man, that's like I don't know about traveling, internationally, and I don't know I don't know this Jamie Smart. I don't. And my wife just said, hold on a minute. Isn't this your dream? And once I heard that, I realized that's the answer. That's I was back in the deep feeling of that direction. Not the particulars, the feeling of it, the feeling of wanting to bring this understanding to the world. I dropped into that feeling. Then it was a no-brainer. I knew I knew what to do. And the reason I'm telling you this story is because the answer lies deeper than you're thinking about what this or that. It lies in what's the feeling in you about whatever it is you're looking toward. That's what will help you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. That's really helped me a lot this evening. Yeah. I have noticed in the past, like when I've gone through a week or two, maybe when I couldn't make my mind up about something, I just got caught up into thinking and I couldn't stop. It just wouldn't stop. And then suddenly out of nowhere, it just stopped itself. And a feeling, as you say, uh, uh, the answer came as what was right for me. It's the waiting for that. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
that's
it's it's the
that's the
discomfort in waiting for that is probably, yeah. You can't just switch it off. You sometimes just have to, I say, like, yeah, yeah. And talking to you has really helped me this evening. I really enjoyed it, and your story has helped me as well. I better not take up any more time because there's other people here that would like to
okay.
talk. And thank you
Okay.
so much, Mark.
Angela, I'll get right to you. I just want to share a little bit more here, and that is like that's how it works. That's once you begin to believe, as Sid said, you have to believe that you are mind, you are the intelligence in the universe, and this intelligence that you are is guiding you uh, to your true nature. Then you kind of give these decisions up to mind rather than yourself. And what I mean by that is, I have things in front of me, and what I usually do is kind of just ask the intelligence to guide me. I just kind of say, "Man, I really like to go in this direction. I don't see it. Help me see. Let me see." And like what you're sharing is, all of a sudden you get the direction. It occurs to you. That's not an accident. That's really what we are. And in our world, it takes time. So sometimes I say, "Hey, I don't know yet. Where are you?" But again, the spiritual wisdom has no sense of time. It's just going to give you what you need. So the more you see that that's just how it is, how life is, how our nature is, you just kind of, it's like a no brainer to just kind of go about your day waiting for something to come to you. So I just wanted to add that as well. I know I want to share one more thing about this, that it's just stories. It's not me. It's not really me, but it's the stories about me that it's how I've learned what I'm sharing with you. But it's with you too. You know, I've been called on to speak at different conferences, and at the principals conferences and at the 3P UK conference, and and what I realized early on, when people have asked me to do a presentation, let's say on the principles, is that I don't know really how I'm going to share everything until the early morning of the day of my talk. And I started to realize that the intelligence of mind um, kind of plays with me because I get nervous about it not coalescing. Like I know I'm going to talk about the principles. And so I kind of say, well, here's a point I want the audience to see. And then I go along with my week or a couple of weeks, and then a story comes to mind. And then a point comes to mind, but it really doesn't feel right. I have all of these directions I could go. And this happens all the time. And then the morning beforehand, I kind of wake up in this beautiful feeling, and I have tears in my eyes, and I have my talk. And and I've come to value that. And that's the intelligence we are. That's mind guiding us. Now, there are other ways in which it's occurred to me simply. It's been simple, where I just recognized my thinking was off, and it occurred to me to go apologize. Now, I think maybe you might have heard me share stories when I managed this group of 8 psychologists. And I was rude in a meeting with my team to one of the psychologists. I was just really in a lower mood then, and I was rude to her. And when I left, I realized I was so rude. And as I quieted my mind about it, it came to me to go apologize to her. And I did. And we just got closer, uh, more connected. So it's simple like that, or it could be kind of grand, like, here's your talk, you know. But it's kind of like being able to wait for it to kind of coalesce and speak to you. I know I'm covering a lot in a short time, so I hope that made sense. And let's go to Angela. Hi, Angela.
Hi, thank you, Mark, for joining us. You're so good with your time. Something what you said there, it was like, yeah, it was one of those ping moments, and I just got such a visual when you explained about the river being frozen and the solid kind of top, and just how solid some of the things that we worry about and are fearful of, and just really, really trusting that even in that, it's still flowing in us. It was such a lovely visual for me to kind of see that. So I just really wanted to say thank you for that. Yeah, it just, yeah, something inside me just was, yeah, that's a good visual to have. And then just really a little bit on sometimes the seeking that we do for happiness. Sometimes even that in itself can kind of sometimes get in our way of the actual, like, what we think happiness is, as opposed to, just that natural sort of content, light-hearted feeling. So yeah, it's really just if you could talk a little bit more maybe to that, to sometimes, when you first come into the three principles, you think there's a right way and a right way, or right and wrong way of feeling. And, you're nearly sort of swiping bad thoughts away, that kind of thing. But it's just to be so okay, no matter what, and that's where even just again to tie into that idea of the, just that solidness we think in what we think is making us unhappy. But yeah, hopefully I've put a question in there somewhere or something for you to take from there.
Well, thank you. And that experience you had about the river, something touched you. You've seen something, and let it percolate. Let it be with you. Something's going to come from that. It really did add up for you. That you really heard something there. Yeah, you want to see that there's nothing wrong. The principles are this energy. You are them, and they're not. They have no care how you use them. See, there's nothing right or wrong here. It's just being in the human condition, given a way to know life, and also a way to experience the quality of living life with love and understanding. So wherever you are, it has to get out of the idea that there's something wrong here if you're feeling badly or in a, I don't know, in some dissatisfaction or upset, or it's just seeing that all of us in the human condition are always moving through levels of consciousness. That's why there's nothing wrong. It's not like any of us would ever be able to stay at a certain level of consciousness, because consciousness is always moving in, and it's all, there's always like levels of it that you're in throughout the day. Even if you love being happy and you are in a happy state, you can't hold on to it. That's why it would, like when we were in the early days, there are just a handful of us in the San Francisco Bay Area, in California, and North America, in the United States. Just about five of us, and we would get so freaked out in terms of getting caught up in our negative thinking. But that's life. That's just a drop in your level of consciousness. So how can that be wrong? Because that's how this energy works. See? So it just, when we talk today about happiness, or Sid talks about contentment, it's just a pointer. It's just a direction to see what's truly available for all of us to live in. And really to get more of an understanding that the only thing in the way is that we get caught up in I guess you might call it personal thinking. We get caught up in our habits of thinking, but we all do, because at a level of consciousness we are in a solid. It's more solid, whereas in another level of consciousness we're free of that. Living in the beautiful feelings of nature. You see? So that's the way to look at it. In fact, it's not even up to you. You see, you really, in a way, you really have nothing to do with it. And in a way, it is you. It's really paradoxical because there is the form you, and then there is you, this energy. It's nobody else. So, but if you could see that the level of consciousness you're in dictates your thinking, they go together. Uh, um, you can see there's nothing wrong. It's just it's just quite natural. So something that might help is um, this didn't happen often for me. It didn't, but there were occasions where we had a chance to spend some time with Sydney Banks. And one time because we were in the profession of psychology at that time, we were talking about depression and kind of talking together about how can we help people understand this to move them out of depression. And he said, look, here's what you have to see that when you're in a low mood, so when you're in your trouble thinking, you have to have the courage to see that it was just a drop in your level of consciousness. And you have to have courage because, as you all know, when you're caught in your painful, troubling quality of thinking, it looks solid. Like you were saying, Angela, it looks solid because that's how thought and consciousness works. It makes it look real to you. When you're bothered, it really does look like your spouse did it. In that moment, it is them. And he said, then have the courage to see it wasn't them. It was just a drop in your level of consciousness. It's just your thinking. See? And I love that because it's not something you can see immediately. This statement he shared is something you can evolve the understanding for the rest of your life. But that's why there's nothing wrong. That's why you're human. Because you're not always going to be at the level of consciousness you want to be. You see? And then you're going to be even greater than the level of consciousness you want it to be. And so you just want to nurture that. When you're there, you want to appreciate it. You want to live in gratitude. You want to hold it. See, when I was working in the psychiatry clinic, I saw a lot of couples, people in love relationships. Now, of course, by the time they got to me, they were in this. In the meeting with me, they came in with this. Dr. Howard, you got to change this person in my life. They're so and so and so and so. Oh, no, you got to change this. That's where they were. Now, what would happen is through the meeting, there would be an act of kindness, an act of tenderness. Somehow through the meeting of that, they would hold hands, or one person would put their arm around the other person. But then they would leave that and go back up here. And what I did was stop them and say, did you see that moment you held hands? I think so. They were so not appreciating that they couldn't remember they held hands, and then they did. I said, that tenderness is what you're looking for. You already had it. It's already here. However, you get caught up in your thinking. And that's what you have to see. The only thing that's keeping you from more tenderness is your thinking. So, what you want to do is nurture that tenderness, appreciate that you got a reprieve from the way you're using your thinking. You were given a reprieve from the energy you are, that love that exists in you now, that river that's flowing underneath this. So you want to begin to see that's you, when the minute you have that, you're there. And so you want to nurture it. You want to take care of it like you just planted little seeds for flowers. Um, so, Angela, thank you for sharing that. Um, right now, I realized I shared a lot from what the feeling I got from what you were sharing. And I don't know where it came from. I don't know what, 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 uh, what I was pointing out to all of you, except that relax about these principles. And, when you get a freedom from a troubling state of mind, just be so thankful and grateful and live there.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything that you'd like to ask or share? Is there something in the chat? I don't know. No, not really.
No, there's nothing. There's nothing in the chat. Can I ask you something, Dr. Mark? I've about 25 questions. So I suppose the first thing that comes to mind, you were talking about levels of consciousness there, and that, we're not always where we want to be. Where does free will come into that? Like if I'm in a lower level of consciousness and in a bad mood, and I'm thinking up a fabulous thought storm, a hurricane sometimes, where is free will in that? What do I do in those situations when it does feel like it's solid and that there's no river flowing underneath that solid mass of ice?
Well, wow, this is something that, all of us can continue to see more. What a beautiful question. Um, to start with, you have the free will, meaning that you have the freedom from your conditioning. And even in your conditioning, to think any way you want to think. Without the free will to think any way you want to think, you would be a personality. You wouldn't be able to be anything other than how you were taught to think. Now you're using your free will there too, to think the way you were taught to think. But without it, there would be no chance for you to change your mind and think differently. See? So with free will, you have the opportunity to think beyond the conditioning you grew up in. That's the whole of the principles. See, in psychology, excuse me, there's an approach of what they call behaviorism. B.F. Skinner was the proponent of this, where you were nothing but conditioned. You were just nothing but being conditioned by your reward. Whatever you were rewarded to do, that's how you learned. You were conditioned to think. But what this free will allows us to see is we're more than that. We're not We're not the effect of conditioning. We're way beyond that. So you have the free will to see life beyond the way you were taught to think. That's why there's hope for people who worry. That's why there's hope for people who are judgmental. That's why there's hope for people who are depressed, because they have the chance to have freedom of thought, to think anew. And once they think anew, they're a different person. So that's why there isn't any personality. A personality is just the level of consciousness a person has been in. When they rise above that because they can freely think, they're a different person. I was raised in a way that I became a judgmental man. In my clinic, I would be very judgmental of my colleagues. I would sit in staff meetings that we had once a week, and in my mind, either be debating them or actually debate them because I was judgmental about how the way they were operating. When I got freedom, I thought beyond that. I saw they were like me, doing all they could do given the thinking they were in. They wanted to help. They were following their calling like I was. My heart went out to them. So I had the free will to think other than the way I learned to think. And I was a different person. I was an understanding person around the clinic. Now my judgmental thinking would come in, but I had the free will to see it for what it is and change it. So that's one way to look at it. If we could look at it together, because Sid said that you have the free will to think any way you want to think, including um, uh, anything you're thinking. You've used your free will to think it. You've used this freedom to think any way you want to think, including the habits of thought you have. No one else is thinking them. You wouldn't be able to think them without a free will, the ability to think any way you want to think. And when you wake up to the power, just get a feeling for the power you have to say, I really chose to think that innocently, huh? Innocently. You didn't actively choose to think that. You then can wake up to say, well, wait a minute, I want to think differently than this. When I realized, man, I just thought about people in a judgmental way. I don't want to do that anymore. But I thought it. See, I thought it. That's why Sid would say you have the power of thought and free will to create a reality you live in. So, Angelina, that's what I would share with it. I would also share there's more to see about it than I know. And it's constantly evolving that understanding around what is Sid really sharing with us about free will. But really, he says it all the time, the freedom to think any way you want to think. How do you get there? You realize the nature of thought. You see that you've been given a way to bring to life this energy as a thought. And you have the freedom to think any way you want to think. Isn't that something? Isn't that so? I was just talking to someone that I've been mentoring, and she asked me about the time I spent helping people in this inpatient psychiatry hospital during COVID. And people would come in, would meet with me, and then they would talk with me like people talk with you if you're a coach or a health professional. But their thinking was really dramatic because they were a bit delusional. Somebody would say to me, Mark, I don't know. I mean, like I'm just so scared to be home because my neighbors keep talking about me. Every time I step out of the house, I know I can hear them talking about me. I can see that they're looking out the window, looking at me. And I invite them to see if they would be willing to see that's just thoughts that they've come up with. It's just ways of thinking that they started to use their free will to think. Do they want to see that that's not really the truth of the matter, it's just thinking. Once they do, they get to feel this freedom of, oh my goodness, wow, I don't have to be frightened in life. So, Angelina, I hope that made sense to you.
Yeah, it did actually. Thank you. I love the way you described it. Sometimes in my own experience, what I found is some of that more insecure thinking has just fallen away without me doing a whole lot, actually, without me doing anything at all. And I suppose that's the bit I'm curious about with free will, that I don't feel like it was free will. I made the choice. It was there. It was that learned thinking, that whatever it was I had thought or picked up along the way. And then it has just fallen away. It doesn't feel like it's free will. It probably feels a little bit more miraculous that it's just gone and it's not there any longer. Is that something different?
Well, it's just an idea of what free will is. It's like, that's why it's for both of us and all of us to continue to stay open to try to see if we will get a gift of realizing the truth of that. But here's the way to look at that. It's like it was you, somewhere in you. This is this is me trying to describe the indescribable. Because when that falls away, you're at another level of consciousness. When that falls away, you have, somewhere in the sense of our spiritual nature, that falling away is you seeing life from a higher level of consciousness. And for that to happen, your thinking had to change. Now I don't see all of that happening, and you don't see all of that happening. But if you can get a sense of a level of consciousness, it had to have been a change in your level of consciousness, your level of awareness. You had to be aware of, like for me, um, being judgmental just goes by the wayside. But it's because you're living in a higher level of understanding, a higher level of awareness. And in that higher level of awareness, there's no room for your old thinking. It can't exist. It can't exist. You see? That's why you can't be right and happy at the same time. You know? So that's why it feels like it disappears or just floats away. It feels like, well, it truly isn't you consciously um, making it drift away, but it has happened that you've come to a higher level of understanding of consciousness where this couldn't exist. So it floats away. It has no place to root, you know? Again, it's kind of pointing to us trying to describe something that it has this formless energy at work. That there's something greater than us in operation, but it's still coming through us. It's still us, but it's not this intellectual um, making it drift away or making it go by the wayside. It's that we just reach the level of seeing life where it can't exist. Same thing with these couples that I saw that when they first came to me had 10 things they needed to change in their relationship for them to be happy. When they started to find love, which is a higher level of consciousness than anger, than blaming the other person, when they started to realize the nature of thought and drop into beautiful feelings with each other, uh, 8 of those 10 things no longer existed. They didn't matter. They just like went by the wayside. Well, that's because they came to a higher level of consciousness where it's kind of like, what? What were we thinking? It's kind of like that, you know? What were we thinking, you know? Because they're looking at it from a different vantage point. But it's still coming from within them through the spiritual energy of thought, not intellectual thinking. Uh, so I hope that I hope that gives you a feel for it.
Yeah,
It's like,
thank you for the distinction. I thought free will had something got to do with my intellect. What I'm hearing you say, free will has got to do with the formless energy that we are.
yeah, yes,
Thank you.
that's what Sid's pointing to. That's it, Angelina. That's beautiful. It's great that you found that answer. It really helps me too. He's not talking about intellectual. Remember, whenever you listen to Sid, he's pointing beyond you. Everything he's saying is beyond you. We get confused because we try to take it into it being about the intellect or our personal thinking. But he's always coming from beyond you, your personal thinking. Wonderful, Angelina. That's it.
Thanks, Mark.
Oh, wow. Isn't that great? Um, uh, Arthur, I'll get right with you. I just wanted to share with people if you have questions, if some of you are trying to share this understanding, and you have questions about that, I'd love to help you with that too. Arthur?
Hi, Mark.
Oh, hello, Arthur.
Good to be on the call. I just had a question. I suppose it might sort of be in the same realm or somewhere near what Angelina was talking about, but it's something that's I've been thinking about for quite some time. And I've heard you speak about, and I've heard quite a few of your talks, you speak about people doing the best they can or all they can. And then coupled with the idea of psychological innocence, some level of psychological innocence. And I've always puzzled a little bit in my mind about that, because I remember speaking to a lady one time a couple of years ago, and she challenged me on this, and I realized that I was kind of out of my depth. I really didn't know what to say about it, other than kind of repeat what I already said, that there was a level of psychological innocence. It was the whole idea of culpability and doing the best we can, and yet we know at some level what is right and what is wrong. I was just wondering if you could maybe speak about that a little bit.
Yeah. I just want to make a note, because what you shared also could be helpful if you're coaching or sharing this with people. So let's go back. What's the direction from Sid about this? And he shared this. We are all the same. We are all mind. And we're all acting in life. These are my words about his words. We are all acting in life the way that we're using thought. We're all going to be thinking differently from one another. He called it separate realities. So we're all going to be thinking differently from one another, even if it's the same issue. We're not going to see it the same way. So if you look at that, the reason why people act the way they do is really due to the quality of thinking in their minds. That's it. The quality of thinking in their minds dictates how they're going to act toward you or how you're going to act. Nothing else dictates that. So that's the truth. And that's why people are doing all they can do. They're doing all they can do because you can't do any more than what you're thinking. So if you think that somebody's been extremely rude to you, you might tell them off. But if you think that that person's been loving to you, you're not going to tell them off. You don't have that on your mind. So that's the piece to continue to try to absorb. We're all the same. We're all the same energy of mind, using thought our way. So that's the truth. Now, that doesn't excuse or ignore people's behavior. It gives you an understanding that can help you not get into anger and resentment and carrying grudges around, because you see the person really cannot do any better than what they're doing. Now, maybe an hour later they can, but not in that moment. No way, because we all can only act from the quality of thinking that's in our minds right now. See? So that's that piece of it. You've got to see that. We used to call it psychological innocence, but then people got caught up in, well, who's guilty? But if you can really see the truth of it, you get the feeling that people are going around life doing all they can do every moment because of what they're thinking. Now, we have thought to see what people are doing. We have thought to see where it's coming from. And we have thought to see how they're acting right now is harmful. It can be hurtful. It can be dangerous. We can still see that we can still have the understanding of their human condition, that they're acting dangerously because of the quality of their thinking. And that takes care of us. But we still have thought to see that's dangerous. And so we act from seeing that. Unless, not less severe ends. We can speak to that to people. From knowing that we don't want to be treated that way. We don't want to be talked to that way because from thought, we see that what they're saying are hurtful words. However, when we say that we don't like being talked to that way, if we say it from being judgmental and reactive to them, that comes across differently than if we say it from understanding that that's what they're doing because that's the quality of thinking they're living in. So, understanding all of us are going about life, acting in life every moment from the thinking that we're living in. Doesn't mean we can't take action. But when we take action from this understanding, it has a much better chance of succeeding. The other thing is it frees us from grudges and resentments because we see that that person in our lives treated us that way because of the quality of their thinking. We acted this way in the past because of the quality of thinking we were in. Now, when we go to the past, we'll never really get it right. But all we have to do is really embrace the truth that we acted the way we did, and we may now regret it because of the thinking we were in. If we see that we acted just at that moment from the thinking we were in, we can forgive ourselves. We can forgive people. The forgiveness heals us because of the understanding it comes from. But we still may do corrective action. We may apologize. In like the self-help programs in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, they have an amends program. It's different than this, but if you have an understanding that you did everything, you did hurt people's feelings because of the quality of thinking you were in, once you wake up to that, you may be given the direction to apologize for that, to make an amends. So it isn't that you become inactive because you see so-called psychological innocence. You become more involved. I was sharing this one time, and I hadn't fully explained it yet, but I had this group of patients that were in our program that I shared the principles with, and I was sharing this. And one guy raised his hand and said, "Dr. Howard, you're making us the welcome mat of the world." I said, "No, no. You can't get away from the fact that everyone is acting from their thinking. That's what the principles have helped us see. And so when you look at people's actions, you can kind of see the quality of thinking they're in. And that helps you. It helps you understand them. Your heart may go out to them because you see they're really insecure in life. They're really frightened in life. Or you take a stand in some way from that understanding because you don't want it directed toward you. So I've looked at it in terms of people caught up in lower states of mind, but same with people in higher levels of consciousness. They're acting from their actions are from love, consideration, generosity, compassion. So you could see if someone is generous to you, it's coming from the quality of thinking in their minds of love and understanding. And you can appreciate it more. So did that help? You moved around in these squares here. I can't find you. Where are you?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Arthur.
Yeah, that was very
What
good.
happens? People move around. Did that help, Arthur, to see it this way?
Yes, it did. And it also, I think it confirmed in my mind that I shouldn't use the phrase psychological innocence anymore, because I think that's a bit of a trap.
Yeah, people, first of all, we made it up. You know, Sydney Banks never used that. We, when we were forming a program of training, made that up. It's our idea. It's an idea. And the idea takes people away from the feeling of the truth of it. So the closer you stay, Arthur, to the truth that you see, rather than an idea, you're going to live better with it and you'll be able to convey it better. Because people will hear psychological innocence and they'll start thinking about that and they'll miss the insight you saw, the truth of it. You see? Yeah. That's just a made up idea. And you don't want to live following a made up idea. You want to live closer to the truth of the principles. And the truth of the principles is we're all mind using thought our way. And that leads to us acting in certain ways. The way we're thinking dictates our behavior. And that truth is what you want to tell people. That's if any of you are sharing this understanding or in any way, that's what you want to do. You want to share the truth that you've seen, how it adds up for you. You don't want to use terms, ideas that you've heard. They're made up. They're just made up by people trying to help other people see it better. But in a way, it leads to confusion because, as Sid said, it's not the words.
No.
It's not the words. It's the feeling of it, the truth of it that you see. And if you stick to that, you'll have a nice conversation with people. Because when people hear at that moment, you're sharing from your truth of it. This is how I see it. This is what it means to me. It'll resonate with them because we're just sharing a flavor of a truth rather than an idea. You see? When you share an idea, there's no life in it. It's somebody else's thought.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Arthur, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
that.
Great.
Thank you, Arthur, for that question.
You're welcome.
Boy, we've covered a range of things, haven't we? Anybody with questions about sharing this, or are you sharing this in your life with people? Any questions about that? I'll give you a story that really helps you see this, is that if you're going to share something you're excited about, that you've realized about the principles, Sid's teachings that you listen to, you want permission before you share it. You know, always kind of share with people, get the permission. Like, you know, I've really seen something that I'm excited about. It's really helped me in life. Is it okay if I share it with you? And I'll tell you the story. My brother-in-law, who is now deceased, was having a really troubling time, and he went to an intensive around the principles and got a tremendous insight. He's really, really, really saw the spiritual nature of life, and it helped him a great deal. But here's what happened. When we would get together as a family, you know, like for somebody's birthday or a holiday or just an occasion for all of us to get together, all the family, you know, we would sit after dinner together, and all of a sudden, he would start speaking the spiritual stuff that he saw. Well, my brother-in-law, other brother-in-law say, oh, wait a minute, I got to go refresh my drink. Somebody else would say, oh, wait a minute, I want another piece of cake. Somebody else would say, oh, I got to go use the restroom. You know, all of a sudden, he was there alone. Everybody left. You know, it's true. He didn't have permission. Not that he was wrong in what he was saying. He didn't have permission. People didn't want to hear that at that moment. So by all means, share. If you want to share something that's really made sense to you, that's touched you, and you want to give it to someone that you care about, or somebody as a friend who's asking you for advice, get permission. Just see if they'd be willing to hear something that's helped you. And then there's this Mark. Is that you, Mark?
Yes. Hi, Mark. It's Mark and Nikki. It's really lovely to be here with you. Thank you. And we've a question about permission. So our daughters are in their mid-20s, and we've had some success in sharing this, but I'd love to hear from you. How do we share this more easily? And I think it is a question about permission, like you said.
Is that Nikki?
Yeah, hi.
Hi. Nice to see both of you there. Well, there's that for sure. You know, you really there's a couple of things. You want to make sure that you're coming from generosity rather than telling them something. Well, you know, so and that's part of permission. Is that you don't want to come from, I've got something here that's good for you, that's better than what you're thinking. You want to come from a heartfelt feeling of wanting to offer. And then you do want the permission, but you want to truthfully share that it's something you want to share that's helped you. And can you offer it to them? So that's the place you want to be in. You don't want to be some expert. You want to be very, very careful about coming from thinking you've got something they need or something that's better than how they're going about it. You got to really get clear of that. Yeah. Believe me, I learned that the hard way, trying to tell my wife it's her thinking, you know, and it didn't work well. It's a joke. I'm just kidding, but it's true. It's true. Don't, you know, so that's the first thing. The first thing is the reason it didn't work the first time I tried to share with my wife, because my ego was involved. I thought, I've got something here that can make you better. You see, it was subtle. And no one's going to go for that. But when I came from my heart, from love, and wanting to offer something from goodwill, from this feeling that it's really something that helped me, it had a different reception. Let's see. The other thing is live it. Live that understanding in their presence. Listen to them. You see, that listening is going to lead into you getting a sense to share something. Like my son, he's 45, and he calls us a lot. And there are still times when he's talking about something he's caught up in his life. There's times that I get pulled into being parental. And so when I'm parental, I'm advice giving, and all of a sudden the phone hangs up, and that's my signal. Oh man, I lost it there, But when I listen, just to try to have understanding, just to hear his humanness, the conversation's easy to go to offering something. So there's a listening piece that goes with this. Always, always. If you've got the permission to share, and you do share, you then have to listen, because it's the listening piece that allows you to have the flow of the conversation. So you always want to ask a friend if you shared something, got permission to share, and said that is to ask them how it went. How did that land? Did that make sense to you? Do you want to hear more? You see, you want to listen to them. So both pieces, permission and really sharing from a deeper place in you, and wanting to offer something, and then listening. And it can go either way. You could be listening quieter first, that leads you to ask if you could share something you've seen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense for every one of us? It's what you want to do, even if you're coaching, even if you're in a health profession. It's the same kind of flow. If you share, you want to then listen to how it landed. So that can help you share better. If you are listening, that can guide you to something to share. So wherever you start, it isn't just one thing, it's both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but now I can really hear myself. I can really know when I'm going to get parental, and I really try to quiet that down.
I think
It's
that's
really hard.
to look for. It's very tempting. Thank you, Mark.
That was really helpful.
Yeah, great. What came to mind again was I've been doing some mentoring sessions before coming to this call, and I was mentoring with someone who attended my retreat in Spain, and she just loved this sense of being human with people when you're with people sharing this. And she shared something about how, you're just in it with them. You're in there with them. And that's really the sense of it when you're called on or asked about sharing, is you're human too. It isn't, you don't want to get into that ego thing of you've got something that can make them better. You just want to really quiet that and just see you're human too. You have got caught up in your thinking just like they're caught up now. However, you've seen something that can really be helpful. And do they want to hear this? So the more you just stay back in, you're as human as your family, as your friends, as your colleagues, as your clients. That'll serve you really to hear more from you. And people will relax around you. You know, people get their, here we have the expression dander up. They'll kind of get their hairs on their back up when you come across like you've got the answer, even if it's the principles, even if it's Sid Banks' teaching. Well, Angelina, what do you think?
I think this has been the most wonderful hour, 38 minutes I have spent in a long time. Thank you from everybody in Three Principles Ireland. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts, Mark. This has been, for me personally, I've just had an absolutely massive insight into free will tonight. So thank you so, so much. Yeah, I feel like something massive has shifted for me. So
thank you. I can get, what a beautiful feeling. Thank you for sharing that. And I could feel it. I can feel that just being with you. And honestly, you know, I'm on the board of the 3PGC, but now I'm an honorary board member. But anything more I can do for you all, really drop me a line. I love that you have this community. You know, it really helps. It really helps to have a community like this, you know, a group of, like we started with a group of 5, but it was so helpful for 2 years to be just meeting together, you know. We didn't have any organizations or anything then, you know, and so it was so helpful to be able to just talk with one another and see how what everybody was learning. We were really thrilled to be together. It was like a discovery, ongoing discovery. And so anything I can do, I mean it. You drop me a line, send me an email, and I'll be there. But thank you so much for the love I feel from all of you and the respect.
And just to read some of the things people are saying, thank you. It was wonderful. They loved it. Somebody said you're another direct connection to the origin of the principles. We are privileged to be able to make these connections.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
So yeah, from all of us, Mark, thank you so, so much. This has been beautiful.
Well, you're welcome. And thank you for having me be part of your group meeting today. I loved it.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Bye. Bye.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.